Good morning. You are very welcome to the Enhanced Community Care Programme webinar, National Rollout of HealthLink Referral Forms. The panel will be delighted to receive any questions you may have. Please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your PC laptop screen. If you are using an iPad, you will find this feature located at the top of your screen. Without further ado, I will now hand you over to your host, Pat Healy. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Pat Healy. I'm National Director with responsibility for implementing the ECC programme, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here this morning. I hope that you get some benefit from the opportunity we have here on the webinar, which is focused on the rollout of the HealthLink across the CHNs and the community specialist teams of ICPOP and CDM. So we're going to start with the slides. Are the slides on there?
Bear with us there a moment, Pat. Colleen's going to share them.
Oh, yeah, very good. So if we just jump on, yeah, there. So we have a nice program for you here this morning, where we'll be introducing some of the national and local leadership involved in the system, and they'll go through the various components of how we're going to use the CHN HealthLink. There's a live demonstration, and as well as part of this, and we would talk to the network team in CHO4, who've been very good to work with us in developing the lived experience of this, and who were our template for learning and building the CHN referral form and the overall approach we take. We'll also then talk to our ICPOP and CDM specialist teams, and we'll give you an opportunity to have a Q&A and keep sending us your questions on the chat as we go through. So maybe just to do a bit of an introduction to begin, we go on to the next slide. Just, where are we and what progress has been made to date? And I think it's really positive to flag that at this stage we have 94 of the 96 networks up and running. We have 23 of these community specialist teams for older people, or ICPOP teams, and we have 21 of the CDM specialist teams. So huge amount of progress being made. Frailty at the front door teams are in place, and I think a hugely significant element of the overall program is this requirement for interdisciplinary working. So each of the teams, whether it's in GPs, whether it's the practice teams, the community healthcare networks, or each of the specialist teams working with the front of house and the inpatient teams of the hospital, each of those are diligent and very focused on their own work as a team. But a key part of what we're trying to do now is to join up all of those teams and have them working in an integrated way across the services, all for the betterment of our patients and service users, so that they'd have a better experience. As Geraldine Crowley, our Assistant National Director, keeps telling me, we must shift the burden of integration from the patient or service user towards the system itself, so that these teams work together to make it a more joined up and simplified experience for our patients and service users. So a key component of that, of course, is our digital transformation, and recognizing that we're coming from a low base. A huge amount of work is being done in order to improve that, and the HealthLink is one of the areas that we're going to focus on to seek to do that. And maybe as we move on to the next slide, just to say that our CEO, since he has been appointed, has taken a particular focus on the whole Enhanced Community Care Programme. And I just have on the screen here what he set out for the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Starting to Care, the dedicated committee that looks at the implementation of Starting to Care. And he set out a couple of key objectives for ECC, recognising that we're on a journey and that significant progress has been made, with 2,500 staff nearly onboarded at this stage, just under 1,000 to employ in the current year. But what he was talking about was the importance of as we move away from an overly acute-centric system, to make sure that we were in the ECC program, making sure that we were directly connected to improving access to the primary care services. So what he means there is the nursing, physio, OT, speech and language, those type of therapy services, and also ensuring that the outcomes of ECC are directly connected to reductions in hospital avoidance or getting timely discharge. And again, in all of that, the referral process between general practice, the CHNs, and in and out of the hospital and the community specialist teams is an essential ingredient. So if we jump on to the next slide, you'll see there that as well as emphasizing that we talked about ensuring the volume of activity that we're doing is identified and the metrics that we've done, and we've a huge amount of work done on that, with targets having been set now for the rest of the year and into 2024. But a key component of making this a successful process is that issue of ensuring integration across GPs, CHNs, ICPOP, CDM, and the front of house of the hospital, and HealthLink referrals are a key component of that. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today, building on the work that has been done in our test site in CHO4. And we have now got to the stage where we're translating that into a structured implementation of HealthLink across the system. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So we've started the process now of rolling out HealthLink. We had, it's a really important issue for everybody on the front line, both general practice, CHNs, the specialist teams have all been feeding back to us that the absence of the HealthLink referral in a structured way has been something of a disabling component. So bringing this about now and landing it and having it rolled out is a really important part and a significant step in the technical transformation, along with the overall transformation focus of the ECC program. So without further ado, I will introduce you to our next presenter this morning, David Hanlon, our NCAGL, our clinical lead in primary care, who you will be familiar with, and who will talk you through the integrated case management and CHN referral form. And we will go from there then and talk to the CHO4 team who actually implemented it. So maybe David, over to you.
Thanks, Pat. You set the scene very nicely for us there. So I'm conscious we have more than 300 people online here, and it's quite there'll be a mixed and varied kind of audience. So I'm just going to talk a little bit from the point of view of the CHNs, and some of you will be very familiar with this, and others it might be less so. So it's just part of setting the scene to this. The country's divided into 96 community health networks. Each of those have about 50,000 population, some bigger, some smaller, and they've got a number of primary care teams within them, and each one is headed up by a network manager. And the purpose of having these CHNs as it's a foundational step in building the better health service, to pivot everything towards primary care and a community-based service. So it's really about the local patch, the local services, the local community, and having those services work in a more coordinated and consistent way, promoting the MDT process and improving the integration with the other community services. So these networks broadly map to a greater or lesser extent with a lot of your CDNTs, your general psychiatry, your community specialist teams. Then are 3 of these networks mapped to each community specialist team. Is the normal kind of model to that. So there's quite close kind of geographic alignment around this, and what we need to do now is try and get the different services and the different people working within the services collaborating and working in a stronger, more robust multidisciplinary team. And so a key part of this then is getting people is getting the community, the primary care piece of this working, and getting the clinical team meetings working and the case management, so that we can manage more people, as the Sláinte Care says, closer to home, in their own home, wherever that's safe and feasible and possible to do. So as Pat was indicating, that the referral form, this particularly here, I'm speaking about the Community Health Network referral form that will support these objectives of coordination and integration within the community services at the Community Health Network kind of level. Have the next slide, please. So what's the journey so far on this? Well, as we'll hear from our colleagues in CHO4, last year we did what we call a proof of concept. And I suppose a proof of concept is another new word to avoid saying a pilot. Am I allowed to say that? This was around in CHO4, we got 6 of the CHNs working together to set this up. And they started and they built and developed this form collaboratively with what they needed, with working with Healthlink, and trying to see what would do, and they have used it and piloted it. So this whole process of the form is just an enabler. So what the form is to help the multidisciplinary team to work together, to start setting up our team meetings, to develop care plans, and to implement interventions for the individuals, which will mean that they get better care, coordinated care, all of the things that we strive to do. And so they set about an integrated case management kind of process supported by the referral form and by the multidisciplinary teams and the clinical team coordinators to make this work. And what this process last year validated that this timely integrated coordinated approach can help reduce the need for hospital attendance, can keep people at home. And the key findings there were that the form helped us to prioritize service users more accurately. It allowed the teams to make interventions based on their individual needs. It improved the coordination and communication and integration between the services. One of the key things that they did also, and they'll tell us more of the lived experience, was making sure that the GPs actually not just were bringing patients to the team meetings, but we're also getting involved and we're hearing about the care plans that were developed afterwards. And ultimately, this meant better service user engagement, more care at home. And in particular, it really helped the GPs to become more awareness and to work more closely with the CHNs and the CHN services. The next slide, please. So up to now, referrals to CHNs were manually completed and they were being faxed, God love us, or posted, or generally snail mailing them the way around the place. But with the Healthlink referral now, GPs can refer patients in a timely manner to the CHNs and very soon to the community specialist teams. And this allows the ECC program to deliver its objective, implementing these end-to-end care pathways and helping care people at home and preventing the referrals and admissions to the acute hospitals. And a lot of that has just got to do with the timeliness and the completeness of the information. So in terms of the point of having it is to have a simplified, streamlined and rapid referral process. So the form helps GPs to refer all service users who require care from the primary care team within the CHN. The purpose here is to digitalize the current referral process, and this will bring efficiency, privacy, security compared to emails or faxes or other methods of communication. It will improve the communication between GPs and the CHN clinical teams, because certainly from a GP point of view, if there's one thing GPs are passionately and supportive is Healthlink. We put a lot of trust in Healthlink, and that's based on years of experience of working with them. The referrals that we receive will be comprehensive, they'll be legible, they'll have the information that you need to make prioritization and triage decisions. It will reduce duplication, it will increase the transparency and the visibility of the pathway, because can track where that referral got sent, where it received, and all that. And it is an important step. And it's just, it's an important step towards building our digital infrastructure for community services. And I think we've all felt that there's been a bit of a Cinderella around that and needing get into the digital space. I mean, this isn't going to solve all problems, but it is a very important and significant first step, I feel. Next slide, please. So form was developed, as I say, in a collaborative fashion, particularly with the people in CHO4, the HealthLink development team, the EPCC program team, and it allows GPs, as I say, to refer the service users who require care to be discussed at the clinical team meetings within the CHN. And it is the referral form. So basically, the general referral that HealthLink have been using for years has been updated to incorporate referral fields for a number of primary care services. And these are this is a national standard referral piece. So the disciplines that are covered within this are referrals to nursing, dietetics, speech and language, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and social work. This form also has fields for attachments and text fields so that we can provide as much useful information as possible. It can include blood tests, it can include x-rays, and additional letters to support clinical assessments. We need to understand this process has been used by our acute hospital colleagues for many years at this stage, and I'll give you some stats about that later on. But the functionality in the form that we're using here is actually more sophisticated and more developed version than what they have been using in hospitals all that time. And I'd say it's a single national version. Next slide, please. So the key thing here in terms of getting this form and getting this process running in individual CHNs is readiness. We need to be ready to take on this. Now, on the technology side, actually, it's not challenging. It's not. This is very robust, mature, developed process, and there's been done many times before. So, but it is a bit about local organization, and requires a few things to be ready for it. So really, to be effective, the clinical team meetings need to be happening. There's no point in getting loads of referrals into something that's not happening. So the community health networks will need to confirm that team meetings are happening and that that dynamic and process is established. The role of the clinical coordinators is key in all of this, and some networks are maybe struggling a little bit with that, but this has really been identified as a key requirement to get the teams meetings working effectively and to develop the care plans and really get this machine rolling. And the other piece then on a more simple level is a generic email address for each network. And this is just so administratively the referrals can be managed and alerted to them arriving and so on. So those are the readiness then is, I suppose, what teams will be kind of assessed by in terms of their ability and their readiness to deploy the HealthLink form. The next slide, please. So the key takeaways. Implementing HealthLink nationally, it will enable a simplified, streamlined, rapid referral process, and it will. I feel it will make a very big difference in terms of really the old slogan of shifting to primary care. It will make this much more real and much more tangible, and really improve the connectivity between GPs particularly and the primary care services. The referral form has been through a process already and in terms of developing and testing and approvals, and it's been validated within CHO4, and that's why we're progressing now to do it in a national rollout. And it is, as I say, it is a national form. It is something of a one size fits all, but it is also tried and tested in large part. A few things about HealthLink just to say. So I said GPs are very familiar with HealthLink. HealthLink is a well-established brand even, and a very well-established service. It's actually owned and operated and developed by the HSE. So it's not an outside vendor. It's not someone where we have to go off and look for licenses, or you'll be trying to contact somewhere strange, or they'll be telling you that the SLA doesn't cover it or whatever. This is actually homegrown, as it were, but it's homegrown in a very efficient, effective kind of way. And as I say, it's tried and tested. There's dedicated, high quality support, and the experience of GPs working with them over the years has been very positive. And as I say, I feel this is a key enabler of digital referrals and transformation I should have one more slide, hopefully. So just because they won't blow their own trumpet, maybe I just want to say a little bit about Healthlink in that regard. Look at the numbers. 250 million messages. That's the size and scale of the operation that they've been running over the years. So far, well, this data from almost a week ago, 9,969,000. They're probably over the 10 million referrals at this stage. So this is something really I feel you can, if I'm not setting them up now for a big fall as they set out to do a live online demonstration, but really I feel this is a technology and an organization that we can really have confidence with. And I expect you'll have a very positive experience of working with them as you go to set it up in your networks and your community specialist teams. Thanks very much. So.
Thanks, David. Really much appreciated, and just want to acknowledge your own contribution in working with GP colleagues and GP leads and bringing them into this whole process. And thank you for that, and for outlining the detail of it there. And we're going to take the opportunity now to ask Bronagh Kennedy, on behalf of our Healthlink team, to actually take us through a live demonstration of it. And again, I think to double on what David has said, we really do want to acknowledge the work that Healthlink does quietly in the background, but which is a hugely important service in connecting us right across the piece. So Bronagh, maybe you'll take us through a demonstration, and we'll come back to talk to the CHO4 team directly at that stage.
Sure. Thanks very much, Pat. Yeah, just to follow on, I suppose, from what David is saying, I'm just going to go run through a demo of the system from the GP point of view, and then through to the network. So this, I'm logged in here as a GP into Healthlink Online. Now, the majority of GPs will have one of the 4 accredited vendor softwares systems, so they might be already in the patient's chart. So a lot of the information sent in the referral will be auto-populated from one of those systems, but here this is just online, say for a GP who doesn't have a GP software system. So the first thing they do is they select the electronic referrals option. Then they select a service or a hospital that they want to refer to. So in this case, I'll go to CHO4. Then they will get a list of clinic or services available within CHO4. So we'll go to the network. So CHN1, and then we'll have been told what specialties or what referral types are available within CHN1, and we display that then to the GP, in this case, the ECC CHN referral. So I select that, then I enter my patient that I want to refer to the service, and I will be able to auto-populate all the patient data, so their name, address, date of birth, phone number, any information that I want to include, and I click next. So then I'm brought to the ECC CHN specialist form. So as David said, this was designed nationally, and any mandatory fields that the GP has to fill out are marked with a red asterisk. So the GP goes down through this form, giving the information that they want to send. So they have to complete social circumstances. So the patient lives alone, not alone, or frequent visits. The impaired vision, yes or no. Impaired hearing, yes or no. Has the patient fallen in the last 6 to 12 months? And their mobility. And then if they need any help with transfers to the service. Then they're asked to give or select any services outside the network that they might be involved in. So maybe home health, ICPOP, chronic disease. And then this section then is where they fill out the referral within the the service within the CHN that they want to refer to. So we have the nursing referral. So if the patient or if the GP selects nursing referral, they then get the list of services within the nursing referral that they can refer to. So you might have a leg ulcer or wound care, or you can select as many as you want. If a service isn't available here, they can select other and free text in what it is they want to refer to. They might then also want to refer this patient to the dietitian, and they can select that then as well. And that will then give a list of services within the dietitian that they can refer to. So you can say diabetes. Again, there's another option. If it's not here, they can select that and free text in. Then further down, you'll have the kind of general history of the patient. A lot of this will be pulled from maybe the GP software system. So you have presenting complaints, past illnesses, surgical procedures, allergies, and so on. You can include the patient's height, weight. You can include lab results, radiology reports. And also, as David was saying, you can attach on files that might be relevant, documents that might be relevant to this referral. So you can do that by just clicking choose a file, brings you to your documents, and you can attach any ones that are relevant and upload that into the referral form. And that will be included then when the GP sends it. So once all the mandatory fields and everything is completed, the GP clicks next and submit. And they then get an instant acknowledgement or confirmation that the referral has been submitted and has gone to the service. So on that end, then each kind of, I suppose, nominated member of staff within the network or the hubs are given HealthLink login details. So you would come to us with an application form and with the list of staff that will need access to these referrals. We will then give you login details, a certificate that installs on your machine, and you just go to HealthLink and you click login. And I'm going to show you what it will look like then from your point of view. So you'll put in your username, your password on your PIN. Sorry. Of course, this happens. Okay, so this is the network's then own HealthLink account. And you'll see here that as soon as you log in, you're brought to the view unprocessed messages page. And this is where all the referrals will sit until you respond back to the GP to say, yes, we will see this patient, or no, we won't. So under the status, it'll indicate what has been done to the referral. So if a member of staff logs in, they might see that the referral has an open book and a P, which shows that somebody else within the team has already opened and printed that. These ones, the status like this, and if you hover over with your mouse, it'll show message unprocessed. So these are brand new referrals that nobody has opened. The paperclip indicates that the GP has included an attachment with the referral. You'll have the patient name, the doctor that sent it, patient's date of birth, the ECC, the type of referral, and then the date and time that they submitted it. So you can either tick beside the names, the new ones, and go to print selection, which lets you print off your hard copy. Then I know some of the CHNs and down in CH04 are using print PDF, which lets you keep an electronic copy of the referral if it needs to be sent on to, to have it there to send it on to the nursing team or the dietitian team or whatever it might be. But once you send that on, the kind of status or change the referral status or open it or print it, it changes the status under here. The referral then will sit there until the nursing team or the dietitian team review it. And then once they have, I suppose, decided on the course of treatment for the patient, they will either respond themselves or go back to the admin team and say, yes, patient Barry Smith, we'll see this patient and we'll contact him with an appointment. And when that happens, you just open up the referral on the screen. And then at the very bottom, you click here to respond, and that opens up then. If there's one mandatory field on this that you have to fill out to send back the referral, so it's whether you're going to accept the patient or not. If you select yes, you have the option of a clinic date and time, but you don't have to fill that in. And there are also some free text fields if you wanted to type in some additional information for the GP to review or to send with the patient before they come in to see you. And then if you select no, in the case of seeing the patient, you are asked to give a bit more information, like today's date and maybe the reason or why you're not going to see that patient. Once everything's filled out, like in the case of the GP, you click next and you click submit. And that then goes back to the GP and they download that into their GP software system. And when you go back to your main screen, your view unprocessed messages, that referral is gone from this screen because it has been responded to. And that will be available in your HealthLink account, that referral and the response, for 30 days. After 30 days, the information is purged. So the print PDF option is a good one to use, or to get into the habit of using within each of the teams, so you have an electronic copy of the referral long past the 30 days. And then once, I'll just show you then the GP account. So for when the GP logs in, they will then have their response here to view and to download from the account. So thanks everybody, that's everything from me. Thank you.
So thank you, Brona, and thanks very much for that very instructive presentation. And this really brings to life what we're talking about here, and making it more meaningful, I think, to everybody. So really appreciate that. And so now, having looked at the demonstration, we're now going to take time to talk to the Cork Kerry Community Healthcare Network team. And I have great pleasure in introducing Mary O'Donovan, who's the general manager for the area and for the network, and Martina Corkery is the network manager, and Dr. John Sheehan is our GP lead, and they will take you through what has been a really interesting lived experience, I'd say, for them and for us, in terms of how we went through a process to get to where we settled on the HealthLink referral form and how that might be best rolled out. And I'll hand you over to the colleagues and to really thank them for the work that they've done in getting us this far. So over to you.
Morning. Thanks very much, Pat, and good morning, everyone. As Pat was saying, we're going to give a quick overview of the lived experience from the rollout and the conception of the HealthLink referral form. So what we'll do is, as Pat said, my name is Martina Corkery. I'm a network manager here in Network 9 in Cork North City. And what I'll do is briefly give an overview of the rollout and the background, and then I'll hand you on to my colleague, Dr. John Sheehan, to go through the benefits and the challenges with the referral form. And then to Mary O'Donovan, we'll give an update on an interactive map that we have. So as we heard there earlier, in relation to the rollout, I suppose, again, we got a lot of good information there from David in comprehensive presentation on the conception of the form, why it was developed, what it was for. And I suppose we had, the reality of having it here in Network 8. We rolled it out 4 weeks in a pilot phase. In Network 8, the population is 32,000. There was 20 GPs within that area. I suppose the feedback from that pilot was so positive in relation to GPs and from clinicians. They all had the detail they needed. The GPs found it a very efficient and streamlined way for patients to access our service. So they found it just very much easier than our previous referral pathways. So I suppose based on that, we were very anxious to move on with the rollout, because obviously when one area had it, every other area wanted it. So we were delighted to get the go ahead in April of this year to move with the rollout to all the CHNs within CHO4. So again, we weren't wasting any time. We said, absolutely, we will go with this, because again, as I say, it's an amazing digital solution for primary care, hopefully the first of many. So once we got the rollout approval, we started with developing a project management structure and a working group. So the project management structure, as you can see there, involved CHN manager, digital general manager, ECC program, and HealthLink team. And as both Pat and David said, the HealthLink team have been extremely positive and helpful in the rollout. Actually, everybody has been very positive and helpful in this rollout. So we also then developed a working group. I suppose that was in order to look at governance and development of the HealthLink referral in a safe manner. Basically, we understood this was a change in, I suppose we always could receive referrals from GPs, but this was a change in how we were doing it. So we wanted to put in a structure and processes to make sure that we minimized any risk to the referral process and the change in doing so. So within this working group, we found stakeholders within primary care, which were the primary care general managers, the CHN managers, the administration teams, GP leads, therapy managers, digital GM, and directors of nursing. And again, as I say, their feedback on how we moved with this form was invaluable really in relation to rolling it out. And there is, again, the actual overall theme was that it was very positive. There was very few negatives to having a digital referral to the primary care team. So within that group, we developed 3 subgroups, which were the business processes group, the communications group, and the data collection group. Again, these groups were in order to, I suppose, develop a process, minimize risk, ensure communication, and look at the information we're getting in. So these groups meet weekly. The working group met weekly during the rollout, and these 3 groups still meet weekly. The business processes group was responsible really for developing a business process behind the referral from Healthlink to the admin teams. So obviously within the HSE, as Pat said earlier, we have come from a low base of IT really in relation to our structures. So we need to look at how we're going to process the referrals, and that's ongoing. The learning is in the doing here. We have got a process in place, but it is going to be ongoing for a little while as we move into the early life of this project. Communications group was, I suppose, about identifying and ensuring we're doing adequate communication about the change, and also communicating feedback routes, and as well as that change routes. So like we have developed a change. So we have identified that there will be changes required with this form going forward. Obviously, like that, the form is a standardized form. The changes have to be significant in their I suppose, response to care, and they have to be influential going forward. So what we have is we have a change process in place, so that if we do need to make a change, we follow that process for identifying that. And then data collection, obviously, it's just so valuable to be able to collect the data, and necessary to look at the resources, look at the services, and collect the data. So as I say, those 3 working groups are continuing into the early life of the project. We move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I suppose just to give you a brief overview of the practicalities of the rollout. And again, this was actually interestingly quite simple, I have to say, in hindsight. So the first thing we had to do was gather all the information from the admin teams. When I say gather all the information, that was their email addresses. They had to have a security question, and we basically grouped them into their networks then based on their information. So with that, once all that was done, once we had all the admin information gathered, we then identified the timeline for rollout. So what we did is we did a kind of a staggered rollout where we did over 5 weeks. We did 2 networks per week for the first 2 weeks, and then 3 networks per week after that. Worked out really, really well. So what happens with all the information we gathered for the admin team, every Thursday before a network was due to go live, the admin team would get training on the Thursday, which took 15-30 minutes. On the Friday, they would get their access and login. And on the Monday, the network would go live. So GPs would be notified that they now had access to a Healthlink referral to that service. And as well as that, then obviously the primary care team would know that the Healthlink referrals were going to be live from that Monday. But in terms of IT support and Healthlink support, it was absolutely brilliant. Very little issues came in, I have to say, in terms of IT. There's actually been nothing really. It's been very streamlined moving from start to finish. And as the weeks went on, there was actually less issues coming up. So it really was a very, very successful project, I have to say. So next slide, please. Oh, I'm going to hand you over there to John Sheehan just to go through the rest of the slides. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Martina. Good morning to everyone. And John Sheehan is my name. I'm a GP lead in Network 8, and I was involved in the pilot with Mario Donovan and Martina. And I suppose I just might talk a little bit about, I suppose, the lived experience, I suppose, from a network point of view. As David highlighted earlier, Healthlink is an easy sell in terms of GPs, because they're very used to using it and they have a lot of faith and trust in it, and it's quite a robust system. So I think we were starting very much from on the front foot in that regard. There is certainly a communication challenge, and you have to acknowledge that there's no perfect referral form in this, and this isn't going to solve all the issues and all the challenges. And there is always a balance, I suppose, for us in terms of the amount of detail people want, but also in terms of the usability of the referral process, if you want to get people to buy into that. And there's always a slight trade-off with that. But a lot of that comes from talking to people, seeing what's needed, and the Healthlink team were very, very helpful in this regard, that made the form sort of practical and usable. But as Martina highlighted, there will be changes, you know, in the future, because other issues as it rolls out will come to the fore. One of the things I think that was really important in this process in terms of getting, say, the GP buy-in, first of all, was the element of communication, because although we're very used to using HealthLink, and as Brona demonstrated there, it's a very usable system, and it's even more usable when it's built into the IT systems that most practices have. But also general practices, I suppose, have had a lot coming at them over the last few years, like everybody has, both in terms of the network development, the hub development, Ukrainians, COVID, etc., as all elements of the health service have. So it's important for the communication as to what this is about, because one of the things we did find is it takes time. There's always the early adapters, and then there's people who, you know, what's this all about? That's the nature of every sort of process. So we put a lot of time, I suppose, just in terms of communicating out to people. We had sort of webinars with people, and we visited some practices as well, just explaining, because people do need, you know, to be brought along when you're bringing any change process. On the other side of the house, I suppose, is the concerns, I suppose, from the therapists that they would be swamped in terms of the referral sort of processes. So again, we had to sort of work with that, what's going to happen. And the big point really is these are patients that are currently being referred, but now they'll be referred in a much more consistent way, in a much more streamlined way. And the quality of information and the feedback we've got from the therapists is that the quality of information they get is much, much better, and they haven't been swamped in terms of referrals. So they're getting the same number of referrals, but it's coming through a much more streamlined process. And the GP satisfaction has been really, really high in terms of this, but also the network and the therapist satisfaction has been really high. And one of the, I suppose, benefits of this is that it leads to, I suppose, the building of that network model and that collaborative model, that you're not looking for as Dave said, fax numbers and emails of different people, that you have one streamlined system that people have a lot of confidence in, and then we get a reply, so we know that people's in the system. So that has been a really, really positive experience in terms of the GPs, in terms of the therapists, and in terms of, I suppose, ultimately the patients, this is what it's about. And it has helped that team network model grow and develop much more, because people can identify more with the networks now. But I can't emphasize, particularly when you're bringing in a change, that importance of, I suppose, communicating to people, because sometimes we're all guilty when we're living in a certain world. We presume everybody knows about it, but bringing people along with you and communicating and answering questions and sort of alleviating a lot of those concerns. And I know Martina, I think the idea when she was saying there about the rolling out of the networks, doing that gradually was very good, because in our own local GP network forums, people were asking when it's coming, and it added an awful lot to the sort of the building up of the networks as well, when people saw that this was coming in. So overall, I have to say, practically, it was a really positive experience, and it made people's working lives much easier, and it also enhanced the patient care. So I might hand you over to Mary now, who's just going to maybe talk about some of the issues in terms of the mapping and things like that.
Great, thank you very much, John. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mary O'Donovan. I'm General Manager for the Enhanced Community Care Programme. So I suppose we're delighted to say 8 months on. HealthLink is a network 8 with 8 months now, albeit being rolled out as Martina has described. So very fast, I suppose, we determined that the networks not only support patient flow, their hospital avoidance, and they're critical really to this joint care model. So first off, I suppose, with HealthLink, we found that identifying the correct network was pivotal, not only for our GP colleagues, but I suppose also for the acute service and to support that integrated process. So Martina is going to identify a map that we're working with the Health Intelligence Unit on. So if you have a look there in the corner, you'll see CHN1, which is the North Kerry team. So Martina, if you don't mind, you might just click on that. So as part of this process, you can see that when we go into network 1, it identifies the network manager. So as was previously identified in all 14 networks, we have developed a generic email address for each network as a point of contact. When you go down, you'll see that the Director of Public Health Nursing is there. As part of the integrated discharge process, we have developed a generic email address for all 5 areas of the Directors of Public Health Nursing. And this is to support patient flow from the acute service out into the community. So what we're doing now, since that process started, is when the acute service is discharging to public health nursing, they're sending the referral form directly to this generic email address. It's much more time efficient, and I suppose it is promoting faster care in a timely fashion in the community. To add to this, then, we developed 2 other processes, which was for the community specialist teams, namely older person services and for the chronic disease hubs. And you'll see that in advance of Healthlink being rolled out to those areas, we're currently using these generic email addresses also. I think it's important to note that a lot of time had been spent for the acute service and for our GP colleagues in trying to identify which network that the patient resided in. So we're just going to demonstrate there to you now as well, Martin, if you don't mind going back out. We're going to put in an air code. So in this search box, you can put in either an air code or the patient's address. So today we're going to use St. Mary's Health Campus or St. Mary's Primary Care Centre. So when you click on that, it'll bring up St. Mary's Primary Care Centre. You click on the map, and then the map will bring up the relevant services pertinent to that service user. So both the acute service and the RGP colleagues, and indeed interdisciplinary in primary care, will have those contact details. And that's where we're at with this to date. I suppose just to say, we're working very closely with the Health Intelligence Unit. We do plan on rolling this map out to the rest of the country. Our timelines are fast. We're hoping to have it out in the next couple of weeks, and we have a few technical issues just to sort out. And I suppose the primary care office will be in touch in due course and to gather data from your own service for any service that wants to replicate this. Thank you very much.
So thank you. A really warm thanks to our colleagues in CHO4, and I have to say that it's a compelling presentation when you actually listen to how that has been developed and worked through. And I think from my visits to the team with Geraldine and Jeanette and colleagues from the department and elsewhere, it really does become a real expression of how this can work effectively in joining up and building the relationships across the network, as Dr. John Sheehan mentioned there, and the relationship between the likes of Martina as a network manager, John, the GP lead, and the community of GPs and therapists and nursing across the patch. It's very much a real live lived experience. And what we're trying to demonstrate then by showing that today is this is what each of your own CHNs, the 340 or 50 people on the call at the moment, it's across your own areas that you can translate this and tailor this to make it work for yourself and your communities. And I think what Mary has set out there is where we want to go next, where we will map this, and you'll have interactive maps that will again make it real time. And one of the things that strikes me, myself and Geraldine just talking about it this morning, when you look at it, it's hard to believe that in 2023 that we're working in a system that doesn't have these already in them. But that's where we are, and we're making significant progress, and hopefully this will be something that will be very helpful to you all. So before I go, just again to thank the colleagues from CHO4 for that. And just before moving on, there's a lot of Q&As coming in, a lot of questions. And just to confirm for you, we will be circulating all of these slides and you will get those after the session. And we will capture, we will have an opportunity for some of the Q&A before we finish, but anything we don't cover, we will capture in a thematic way, and we will send out that with the answers to everybody on the call today and distribute it widely. So keep sending them in. It's very useful to have that, and it will stimulate and help us in terms of how we need to respond and what we need to take into account. So moving on, therefore, that's the CHN focus. We do know as well a significant component of this is the capacity to refer to the community specialist teams for older people, or ICPOPs, and the CDM equivalent. And we're going to take an opportunity now with Jeanette Dwyer to just talk to us around the rollout of that. Thanks, Jeanette.
Thanks, Pat. And I agree with you. It is great to see the lived experiences of our colleagues in CHO4. So as Pat mentioned, we've now 23 teams in operation across the country, ICPOP teams. And we've been linking with you all on an ongoing basis. So I know that you've all been looking forward to and really welcome Healthlink being progressed. So first of all, designing the form. Our ICPOP Healthlink referral form has been designed and approved in collaboration with Dr. Emer O'Hearn, who's our NCAGL for older people. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but she's been really involved in this. So the form includes frailty, falls, cognitive status, informal and formal supports, MDT services involved, and previous services utilisation. So in terms of where we are from a progress perspective, we've our requirements gathering completed, our form developed, our clinical user accepting testing completed, and in progress now is to implement that testing feedback. Our operational readiness check, where our preparation is underway, and then our pilot preparation is underway, and our staged rollout will be commenced in shortly. So in terms of for our colleagues from our ICPOP teams on today, there is an operational readiness criteria check that has to be that's been developed and has to be undertaken to ensure that you can access Healthlink. So we will need a generic email address, clinical op leads, clerical support, and multidisciplinary team meetings. So we'll need all of that detail. Just to reassure everyone on the webinar today, our national ICPOP team will be linking out with you all to make sure that we support you and you have all the information you need to get yourself ready. So I'll hand over back to yourself, Pat, if that's okay.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thank you for that. And now, similarly, we'll hand over to Dr. Sarah O'Brien to talk us through the CDM referral process.
Thanks, Pat. So just very briefly, similar to what Jeanette said, we know from our local engagements that this Healthlink form is much anticipated. I suppose the form has been designed with input from the National Clinical Advisor, the clinical leads, the ICGP leads, and the central team. The generic health form has been adapted similar to ICPOP and to the CHN form to include specific fields for the community specialist team services to support delivery of the services in line with the integrated model of care. So depending on patient need, GPs can refer patients to one individual member of the chronic disease community specialist team or multiple members. If the patient is multimorbid, GPs will be able to refer patients for multi-specialty case discussion. The form will also enable referral to the self-management support services such as pulmonary rehabilitation and diabetes self-management education. And attachments to the form will also be allowed to enable attachment of diagnostic results or additional information that's required. And just to note, the guide to referring to the Community Specialist Team Hub services, which is up on the ECC Hub on HSE land, will support the appropriate use of services. In terms of progress with the form to date, the design phase is currently underway, and we've been informed that the subsequent phases, including clinical user acceptance testing, operational readiness check, and pilot, will commence in the next few weeks with a view to having this rolled out over the summer. And with regard to getting the referral form rolled out in your specific area, your team must meet the following criteria at a minimum. So the operation lead must be in place, the grade 4 and the grade 6 must be in place, the community specialist team must be operational, and a generic email account must be set up to be able to receive referrals. That's it. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, and thanks for the work for yourself and the team in relation to that. So now we might talk about next steps and move into that slide. So first of all, I just want to thank all of the presenters and the teams that have been working on this. And for yourselves, we still have 350 people or so on the webinar. So clearly there's a significant interest in this, notwithstanding the very sunny weather we're having for once. A touch of summer coming. So I do thank people for staying with this. And so where do we go from here? So after all of this, I think the first thing I want to say is that the intention here is this is a learning process. We're on a journey. A lot is said about journeys and so on, but we want to roll this out and have an experience across the system similar to what the CHO4 team, Martina and Mary and John, set out there. So this is not about dictating from the top down, or it's not about pressure. It's about building this appropriately at the pace that's necessary in the local area to make it work effectively, to bring on board general practitioners, the therapists, the nursing, and getting the thing working. We do also want to transfer the learning, similar to what we've done with CHO4, but there'll be learning as well from all of your own areas as you start to roll this out. So the readiness checks are currently underway for all the CHNs, and we will have follow-up meetings and engagements with each of the CHNs and the CHOs to make sure that we're learning and seeing what's happening, what's working in some areas, what's not, what needs to be identified. Because the intention is to operationalize this based on the sequence that we'll follow will be a readiness check. Are people ready? Have they got their components in place? Do we have the clinical coordinators? Are the teams working? And if they're not at that specific level, well, then we'll set out a plan for each of those areas that gets us into that space and where the teams are comfortable and can actually move at their pace to get this up and running. It's important that that kind of collaboration goes on, and as well as that, we will be transferring learning as we go across the system. So the idea is that we would have, at the moment, the plan would be a July rollout complete, but that's on the basis of the readiness checks and so on all being there, and we will move at the pace that the different teams are in. And as we know, some of the ICPOP teams were on the ground earlier than others, some of the CDM teams the same. So, you know, you can expect that those teams that were there longer will be more ready and so on, and we'll take that into account as we go along. We just move on to the next slide. I think the importance of us collaborating with our Healthlink colleagues and the digital team, really important. That has been very significant and beneficial to us. And we will learn as we go forward how we can streamline this more and more. And I think the type of interactive model that Mary was outlining there will work with each area to bring that into reality, and that we would have the embryo, if you like, of a service directory for each of those areas in terms of the networks and so on. And again, making it simple for the teams to connect with each other across each of the end-to-end pathways. So I would like to thank all of the presenters, as I've said. I'd like to thank you for participating and for all of the questions that you've set out. So I would now ask the panel maybe to join me here, or the presenters to join me here in the panel, and we'll take a moment to maybe take some of the questions and go through a Q&A and give some of the team an opportunity to talk about or answer some of the questions that we're asking. We won't be able to do this in a complete way, but we will subsequently put all of this into a thematic piece and answer the questions and circulate it out in a kind of a Q&A document for you. So keep sending in the questions and we will answer them as best we can. So maybe looking at some of the questions we have there, and I might just take the opportunity to ask individual panel members, and maybe starting yourself, Sarah. There's quite an interest on the chronic disease side of it, and people asking if they can input into the development of the chronic disease link form, and maybe you'd like to answer that.
Thanks for the question. I suppose, as I said, the CDM form is based on the generic referral form that GPs have been using. It's widely tried and tested. The ICGP leads had significant input into the development of this form. And the feedback we received was that different forms and additional fields for each specialty and discipline will not be used by the general practitioners. But having said that, there will be a pilot phase and there will be an opportunity to refine the form over time to ensure that we are meeting clinical need and enabling a safe and high quality referral process.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Very, very, very comprehensive there. And maybe Jeanette, a couple for you on the ICPOC side. Just a general one, a number of people asking about if we can provide more detail just on the ICPOC timelines. So maybe you might just give us some feedback on that and what you see the timelines as being.
Yeah, so look, I suppose in the first instance, the readiness check by the ICPOC teams is the most important thing to get undertaken. We are here from the national ICPOC team to support you in relation to any questions you have around it. We will need to then have a look at when the readiness checks are completed, and we'll be able to have a better view around timelines. But I think the biggest thing to take away for our ICPOC CST colleagues on today is getting that readiness check completed.
Okay, and maybe a number then asking, and I suppose this is true for CDM as well, but just it's coming up on the ICPOC side of it. What will the process be if the hub, say, isn't ready to meet the readiness criteria? How will that be handled if a team isn't actually quite ready at this stage? How would you see that being handled?
Yeah, well, I think what we'll do, Pat, is from the national perspective, we'll be supporting the teams to get themselves ready and complete that readiness check. But you know, it is in order to move forward and progress Healthlink, the readiness check absolutely has to be completed. But we are here to support people, so I just want people to take that away today. We will support as much as we can.
Thanks indeed. Thanks, Jeanette, for that. And maybe a number here, I suppose, I think CHO4, maybe Martina, you might be able to help with this. A number of questions about the overall referral process. And one of the questions was, did the volume of referrals received increase as a result of implementing the CHL Healthlink referral form? So when you implemented it, did the referrals go up a lot?
So the honest answer is it was very hard to tell that detail because the referrals previously used to come in via every individual discipline. So gathering the stats on how referrals were received beforehand was quite difficult. We now have very clear data on what is coming through to the different disciplines. And I suppose from feedback anecdotally from the teams, they haven't seen a huge increase in their referrals. And I suppose the most important thing is that the majority of the referrals, I would say over 90% of them, are correct for our service. So I suppose that we haven't had a lot of inappropriate referrals or any issues like that. And I suppose the learning piece then is that if there is referrals coming in that are not for our service, we're able to communicate that back, that there's possibly another service available for them or another pathway. So it's been very, very beneficial that way. But I suppose to answer your question, we're not able to give the actual figures, but anecdotally, it doesn't seem like there's been any huge increase. And as I say, the referrals are very appropriate.
Okay, and there is like you were touching on it there, but a number of questions about receiving referrals for the wrong service, if you like, or the services that aren't covered here. You might just mention how you've handled that. Yeah,
so I suppose that was an expectation. Again, I suppose that's the learning piece, learning what people know and what people don't know, if that makes sense. So we're looking at, there's different avenues of communication out for what services deliver and don't deliver. And I suppose the form itself is very good because the drop-down boxes give you the options and a lot of the services that would be involved. So it does reduce the amount of inappropriate referrals or referrals not for the service. However, there's always going to be one or two that come in. So I suppose what we're able to do along with our GP colleagues is go back out and I suppose again educate in relation to where the pathway is, because obviously it means there's a patient looking for a service somewhere. So we're looking, I suppose, and in this phase we're being very accommodating in terms of identifying this is new for everybody, and again that we take this time now to look at the information and the learning from it. And as I say, working with our GP leads and our GP colleagues and identifying the different services and pathways that patients require is really the most important thing. So there is a little bit, there is a little bit of patients coming in, but very small numbers. It's nothing significant, I have to say, across any of the networks. And like that, as I say, for certain disciplines, if the referrals are coming in and they're not for their service, they're able to go back to the GP and let them know that. So again, it's been, and again, they could have always done it by post. So it hasn't changed too much, if that makes sense, only that we're now able to do it probably more efficiently.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Martina. That's really good. And maybe Mary, I might just take the opportunity. Obviously, a number of people interested in the interactive map. You might just talk about that for a minute, and just the intention that we want to make this available for the rest of the country and so on. And you might just talk about that and the work going on a little bit more.
Sure, absolutely. So I suppose, look, I just want to echo what Martina said there. You know, the forum is really very much a health promotion tool as well, and it actually identifies services for GPs that previously may not have known, for example, speech and language therapy, voice recognition, and things like that. With regard to the map, I suppose one of the key features, the network, as I said earlier, you know, it's essential. It's about hospital avoidance, keeping people at home in the right place. But likewise, in the acute service, so much time was being spent on trying to determine what service was out there, and also in educating people on the network rollout and the functions within the network. So I suppose it's been an invaluable resource. It's at its infancy. I think it's important to state that it has great scope going forward to add services such as, you know, the Children's Disability Network teams and other services that David outlined there earlier on. So I think we've got a good foundation to build on. And I suppose just to reassure people as well, when we introduced those integrated discharge processes, especially around the winter period, and where, you know, trolley counts were very high, and this was very much welcomed by the acute service, the processes, the generic email addresses, because it's time saving, and it means the information gets to the person faster, and we get services out in the community much faster as well.
Thanks, Mary. And just before we leave, maybe CHO4, John, from the GP point of view, just the benefits of it, and you've talked a bit about this earlier, but just that whole thing about the interactive map and stuff, would you see that as being beneficial from a GP point of view, or how do you think that will be received?
It certainly will, Pat, I think, particularly in the transition process. I mean, you know, all GPs are used to sectors in mental health services and things like that. And what you find is over time, people get to know sort of their areas and their boundaries and things like that. But in that sort of transition phase, I think it will be very, very helpful. But I think that as time goes on, I think people will gradually get to know it. And we took the decision here when we were doing the referrals. If someone came in from the wrong network, rather than sending it back to the GP, we just referred it to the right network. And as the Healthlink has rolled out, that has made it much easier to do that. So if it went to network 8, it was meant to be network 9 across the road, we just sent it on. And again, that built up that trust rather than sending it back and forth and things like that. But we let the GP know that we sent it on. So again, it's about that learning piece, as Mary says. They know then that that's the network next door.
Okay, thank you, John. That's very helpful. And maybe I'm conscious of time, and we're kind of coming close to wrapping up. Just David Hanlon, maybe one for you. There's a number of questions about you know, updating from feedback and information that we get, so can the CHN form be updated to include the feedback and the updates from the CHNs as we go along? Maybe you might take that, David.
I suppose the answer is yes, but so the form it's a single national form, so we have to understand that to that extent it's a one-size-fits-all piece, and we're not going to be able to accommodate kind of local variations because we want to have different things for a particular service. So it is a national one-size-fits-all piece. It isn't written in stone, and Brown and our colleagues are adept at making adjustments and so on, and that can be done and rolled out in a reasonably straightforward way. The key thing is actually identifying what changes are needed and agreeing that those changes are needed, so that, you know, what none of us want is that the form that we're very happy with, someone goes off and changes a bit that we thought was just lovely, and no one asked us what we thought about it. So we do need a change control process around it. I think we do need to recognise that this version of the form grew out of particularly probably a focus around older people, and maybe I think once we've got it up and running, we need to take some of the learning and say, what do we need to change? That'll be very much the kind of the next phase of it. So certainly that feedback will be really important to feed into the mix. But for now, we have a form that's been through a process. It's been tested and proofed of concepted. So I think what we need to do now is work forward with this one, and then in an agile kind of way, let's listen to the feedback. Let's look and see what adjustments we need to make, and we'll do that. And under the overall governance of the program, we'll see what changes need to make. And as I say, those changes then, because this is worked in HealthLink, because HealthLink is an internal piece, and because it is so agile, and because Brown is great, those changes can be made actually quite simply once it's agreed that was the case.
Okay, no, thanks, David. That's very wise and very comprehensive. So thank you for that. So look, I think we're coming to the close of the webinar. There's a number of questions there about the timeline for rollout and so on. And so just to say again, like we've set a target of July for having this completely rolled out, and the capability is there to do that. And we have the support from Ron and the team and the HealthLink team to do that, and for the national team to support that in the various guises that we've talked about. But as I said, that the readiness checks is the next important piece, and I think the thing to do is that we will engage with each of those as over the coming weeks. We'll connect in with the ICPOP and CDM piece as has been set out, and then we'll start to deal with each geography, each area, each CHO, each CHN, each special team, and that started, and we will continue that across the country with the target date of July. But working and responding to the reality on the ground. And what we will do as well is continue with this type of webinar and other engagements with you individually with teams, across the CHO, across the hospital group CHO, in order to build any more support and engagement and advice that's required as we move along. And we will keep you up to date in relation to the interactive map and how we can commence and roll that out. So maybe at this stage, I would like to thank everybody for participating. I want to thank my colleagues here for presenting, and in particular to Brona and the CHO4 team for all the work that they've done in testing this and getting it to this stage. So I thank you all, and I hope you all have a peaceful and enjoyable long weekend. Take care.